Thabo Mofokeng is my guest today on Future Cities Africa. He's the president of the Information Technology Association in South Africa, the ITA. In the situation we find ourselves today, it seems like your work at the ITA is now more important than ever. Can you expand a bit more on your background and the work that you are currently doing at the Information Technology Association?
Indeed, then it's been quite a busy time of the year, although we're in a lockdown due to the COVID pandemic. Just by way of background, I have qualified as an electrical engineer with a BSc Electrical Engineering. I have, in my past background, essentially was in the telecommunications space largely, where I was responsible for wireless network rollouts, examples for companies like Vodacom. We did do some stint at Telkom. I worked in the engineering space in Vodacom, where we're responsible for network development, network design, network rollouts, and subsequently I became a project manager. I also worked at Eskom as a support engineer in the transmission performance department. And then over the years, I was obviously drawn towards the IT environment, mainly because IT and electronics, due to convergence, you had wireless networks, fixed networks, and to manage those networks, essentially, you needed to have a very good understanding of IT. You need a good background of IT. And you'll also find that even at school, digital electronics, for example, was one of the foundation courses that took you into an IT environment. Software programming, likewise. And then at companies like Vodacom and Telkom, we were responsible for managing the networks, managing the software that runs the networks, the hearts and guts of the networks, as well as implementing remote base stations across the country, putting software into those, configuring the software, and ensuring that the networks run optimally at all times. Lots of times we had to spend multiple nights ensuring that the networks, like for example, when we do the upgrades of the networks, we would work late nights, obviously, so that during the course of the day, the network is up and running, you disrupt a minimal amount of people, because at night, that's when the network is generally quiet. So, and then I subsequently formed my own company, Solario Technologies, which became a member of the IT Association of South Africa. And then over the years, I participated in the leadership of ITA. Got to understand the roles, the ropes, and eventually I became the president of the IT Association as of 2019, April 4. So the ITA is an association of companies in the IT space. And by IT space, we define it broadly. You have companies that are the core operators like Microsoft, that are members of the ITA, SAP. Those are some of the bigger members of the ITA. In addition, you also have small companies like Solario Technologies that are local South African companies. And obviously we play in the space, in the ICT space, whether it's in IT development, IT software, as well as in networking environment. So in a sense, the IT Association is a grouping of companies in the IT space, whether they are local, international, small and big. And obviously we encourage participations and collaboration between the various companies within the sector.
And what trends and opportunities are you see emerging out of this COVID-19 pandemic, especially for the IT and the ICT industries?
Opportunities are vast. They range from education, for example. We currently obviously have challenges with contact studies, whether it's at universities at TVET colleges, or even at high schools and even primary schools, you would have noticed over the years, IT has been growing as as an enabler for technologies, as an enabler for educational tools, as well as an enabler for people to learn at their own pace. So if you learn at your own pace using a computer, from home, from work, or from wherever you are, technology is the key enabler at the heart of it. So COVID-19, yes, it's not the greatest thing to happen to mankind, but at the same time, it allows mankind to fast track some of the technological changes, such as remote learning, online training, self-paced learning. And it also allows universities and higher education institutions to provide courses online, something that to a large extent in the past they have dabbled into. But because of COVID, we're seeing a scenario where these technologies are now being fast-tracked and being brought to the fore. I mean, right now we're engaging in a video conferencing. I'm sure you'll be aware that video conferencing has been around for a while, but these days it's being utilized even more than ever before. So technology has become the core of how we communicate, how we complement our interactions, both with colleagues as well as with other business partners across the entire scope of business.
In this era of rapid digitization that we are experiencing, I would imagine it isn't simply smooth sailing for the IT and ICT industry. What are some of the key challenges that you are still trying to overcome, that you are faced, and kind of how is the ITA assisting in these challenges?
The challenges that we are facing, because we are a membership-based organization, so the challenges would be coming from our members, in a sense. Number one, is no longer business as usual. So they had to readjust in terms of how they approach business. And then number two, the members have to essentially redefine their own approach to business, redefine their models to engaging with customers, and finding niches that work in a very difficult environment. So it's no longer business as usual. Companies have to basically go back to the drawing boards, refine how they handle business, and even develop new business models to survive. And eventually it calls for them to thrive. Yes, our members have been impacted, and those that are not using technology extensively have had the bigger challenges. And at the same time, there have been those that are using technologies that have greatly benefited out of this sort of opportunity. And so long as you can adapt quickly and fast, seemingly there is still plenty of opportunities for companies in the IT space.
It also definitely depends on the sector that you are playing. So for instance, with Airbnb being mostly an app and mostly technology, they've been impacted in a very negative way.
Absolutely.
Where companies like Amazon and Facebook, I'm using international examples now, but they've kind of, and especially with online deliveries in e-commerce has been really good for people involved in that. So let's talk about the future of jobs. I want to know, what is your view on, what do you see the kind of jobs that will be around in 15, 10 years time? And also, how is the ICT industry helping ordinary people in South Africa move out of poverty?
Projecting forward, the future is definitely linked to how we relate to computing environment, how we relate to machines. So increasingly, machines, computers are becoming more part of how we deliver ordinary jobs. So as you look forward, you are unlikely to find an area that is not affected by some form or other of competing environment. So banking is obviously going to be affected. Logistics, same thing with online ordering and delivery of even items as basic as groceries, clothing, and you name it. Anything where technology can optimize and improve efficiency, you will find changes. So the future of jobs is going to be heavily reliant by through the applications of technology. So any job of the future will require that you interact with the computing environment. Artificial intelligence is a key ingredient of that. We are seeing right across the board all jobs being impacted and affected by technology encroaching onto what we traditionally consider to be the domain of human beings. Countries like Japan and Korea and China, you are seeing plenty of robots taking over certain manual jobs. So jobs that are repetitive, that a computer can even learn to a large extent may be done by computers. The impact goes to even non-traditional areas where you would expect computing to be a key role player in. I mean, if you look at the bookings for airlines, you mentioned Airbnb earlier on. Self-service, it's basically down to a human being interacting with a screen, with a computer, sending the instructions to the computer, and getting a service delivered. Gone are the days where you actually go to a specialist to request. Gone are the days where you, computers, the sense is that if you don't move beyond a certain radius, at some stage it switches off. But yes, interactions between human beings and machines is what will determine the future. So as a result, if you're a human being, your understanding of relating to computers and working with computers, computers here, I'm using it as a generic terms for robots, machines, traditional computers, drones, and any function that you can utilize or interact with online. Gaming as an example, that has become a big feature. So it is important to have human beings understand computers and relate to how computers behave and send instructions, receive instructions. So that interactions between man and machine is the future. So jobs of the future are going to be dependent on, firstly, your ability to interact with machines. And then number two, your ability to send instructions and receive instructions from machinery. So that's where robotics come into play. So your controls of machines, and what's even more, some machines are becoming smarter at doing things. You have automatic cars that can self-drive. Aeroplanes can land themselves. Drones can navigate according to a set line of instructions. So you're having more and more computers playing a bigger and a bigger role in the industry. So those that can play in the space where you relate to machines better stand a better chance of succeeding.
You have an initiative at the ITA called the Future of Technology. Can you expand a bit more about that?
Yes, the Future of Technology, we did have a conference around 2018. And then we also last year had an interaction and a webinar on the future of technologies. The aspects that we're looking at is how how does technology change our lives for the better? How do we improve efficiency using technologies? And then at the same time, we also looked into jobs of the future. And the objective here is to assist particularly youngsters and those that are still in institutions of higher learning and even lower down to carve a niche and to carve a career that will be fulfilling in the future. But also more importantly, if we as a country, as South Africa, can participate more meaningfully in the global economy, we believe that could improve our economic standing. Moreover, because technology now transcends borders. So if you do have a unique expertise, that expertise can be on-sold to international countries and enable the country to play a more meaningful role. And companies that can sell their technologies, not just in South Africa, but can deliver global solutions, stand a better chance of ensuring that South Africa participate in the global economy. In a sense, the world has become a global village. So a technology that you develop in South Africa has got a meaningful applications, not only in South Africa, across our borders and even internationally. So that growth part is a very important one. And the ITA's role there was to ensure that we don't get left behind. We integrate our technologies and our ideas into the global village.
This global village is great for progress, but not so good when there's a virus that's spreading.
True.
So you work with quite a few member organizations and you assist with industry collaboration. What are some of the key challenges when it comes to collaboration between public and private sector? And do you have a few solutions?
Collaboration is absolutely essential across the board for us as the ITA, as well as parties and partners that we work with. An example of that would be MICT SETA, because I was nominated by the IT Association to sit on the board of the IT Association, or rather MICT SETA. So the interactions between ITA and MICT SETA has been great, and over the years we have participated in the MICT environment to assist in ensuring that technologies that come into the educational space, we play a role in ensuring that they are also nourished. So the interactions between the various parties, whether it's BUSA, a Business Unity SA, on one hand, where collectively we do have a voice that we can present, for example, in front of government and say, we believe these particular regulations, these particular rules are not conducive to a positive growth. So that sort of lobbying that we can bring forward. And remember, as an industry body, we take various voices from our own members and coalesce those into a unique voice that we can talk to the likes of government. And in so doing, we are able to impact and influence some of the regulations. You don't always win, but however, if the industry comes with one strong voice, it makes our case a lot easier to communicate, whether it is to government, to educational institutions, to educational funders like MICT. So that collection of voices from our members is quite critical, and it's very important because it strengthens a case for better development, because the intention here is to allow our members to have a right and a conducive environment to develop and grow. At the same time, our voice as a collection of companies to government does allow government to hear what the industry wants to project as a voice. And then based on the interactions, you are able to influence the trajectory that regulations, policies, and even laws are taken by the government. So it is important to work as a unit at company level, at the association level, as well as between businesses and government. And that is the role that we believe as ITA we play a significant role in. And I would like to take that sort of trajectory going forward.
Finally, getting into your time machine and going 20 years ahead from now, what do you see, what's your vision for the future of our cities? What technologies are at play? Are we all on Mars? Are we still here?
We are still here. Human beings are rather fragile then. From my projections, I don't see us, number one, surviving the route to Mars still intact. I'm sure it will be quite cramped and very boring on that route. While at the same time, I must admit it will be exciting to do an interplanetary travel. And then you settle on Mars, a completely different world, different temperature. Our bodies are not attuned to that. We really battle with extreme cold and extreme heat while we're here. And indications are we'll also battle to survive a kilometer below the Pacific Ocean, as an example. But that doesn't stop human beings from being creative. That doesn't stop human beings from trying something new. From my standpoint, I think any frontier that we conquer beyond our planetary systems is still worthwhile, because you do learn something from that. The experiences that we got in 1969 when human beings set foot on the moon has, in a sense, assisted us in understanding external planetary bodies. And then number two, it also encouraged a lot of us to inquire about things that we normally would not under normal circumstances. So from an educational point of view, all these avenues where you do something that has not been done, it's perfectly great for science, because it actually triggers our minds to think beyond our current environment. Having said that, but back to planet Earth, I see 20 years from now, there will be more automated vehicles, obviously. I don't expect trains to have human drivers. We are going to see scenarios where aeroplanes fly themselves more than ever. Drivers would just be there merely to give new instructions, such as, for example, you're flying to LA and you decide along the way that, hell no, maybe I must go through Montreal in Canada. Then you provide the new set of instructions to tell your, by then, unmanned aircraft to go via Montreal. And the landing in Montreal will be seamless, will be automated. And we can see some of these things coming through with 5G. Elon Musk satellite networks. In the future, I know they're talking lots of satellites, well over 40,000 satellites. But those microsatellites would be providing guidance for even more precise travel routes. And then number two, landing in any specific space would be more precise. And we're seeing that happening all over us. So technology will be self-supporting, aircrafts will be autonomous, and basically machines will be more prevalent. We are most likely not going to be working long hours, to a large extent be enjoying the benefits of machineries and sending machineries instructions to say, do this for me, do this at a specific time. you probably wouldn't feel the need to go and switch on your heater or your aircon. You'll probably be pressing some button, whether that is on your tablet or on a cell phone or on a laptop. You will be sending a whole lot of instructions to machines. So storage is going to be required, obviously, for that, because you need to identify the behavioral patterns of the machines. And they also, to understand you, they have to do systems analytics on you as well. So the process of analyzing an individual is probably going to be a two-way scenario where, for example, your house will know that then will be at home between these particular times. And for that matter, your house will probably know that you are traveling about 5 kilometers from home. And then based on a set of instructions, it might tell you that, well, switch on the temperature to about 24 degrees because that's dense comfort level. By the time you arrive home, the environment is perfectly right for you. And when you're away from home for a weekend, probably the house will know that switch off this, switch off that, and therefore just run purely the basics to ensure that the household continues. So yes, that's the world that I see going forward.
Do you think people will still move to cities? Will rapid urbanization still be a thing in 20 years' time? Or do you think people will spread out and give each other some space?
I think going forward, remember the need to be in cities was because you were closer to your office, you were closer to the factory, and you were closer to transportation. Now, if we can allow you to work away from home, such as in the suburbs, or in a farm for that matter, I would like to believe that human beings are more comfortable in a more relaxed environment like a farm or somewhere in a mountainside or next to a river. So the future, the way I see it, there will be less of a pressing need to be in a concentrated city environment because technology, as you may understand, that it's also, it might start in the cities, but it has spread into the suburbs quite seamlessly. And then beyond that, you're seeing technologies in townships and villages. The difference right now is the extent of the technologies you have in rural areas. But over a period of time, as more investments are being made, and as government, and we've seen it in the US where the Federal Communications Commission is regulating that huge amounts of money be spent to basically extend the reach of broadband. And that will allow one to have fast bandwidth in rural areas. And with fast bandwidth in rural areas, there will be a whole lot more people that would be comfortable working from a rural environment, a rural setting. The very same people that are good, like programmers, for example, they do work in isolated environment, even in cities. So now if you take somebody like that and put him in a farm next to a river and next to mountains, and the atmosphere is just great, and there is enough bandwidth, chances are there will be more at home working far away from the city than within the city. And we've seen in places like Silicon Valleys in the US, and even around here in South Africa, many of our more, so to say, tech-savvy people are just quite as at home to work in a remote area than in a city environment, so long as access to technologies, access to bandwidth, and access to programming tools, and the ability to have a fast uploads and fast downloads as far as bandwidth is concerned. People are likely to work from anywhere across the world. I am also, being a rural boy, I'm quite comfortable working in more of a suburban, rural type of setting than in a city. The key ingredient is that there has to be access to universal broadband wherever I am. And paying for bandwidth, yes, you have to pay for speed, you have to pay for the good things. But if you can add a more comfortable, a more conducive, and an elegant environment, even better. So people will be more evenly spread into the future than being concentrated in the cities.